Hi, I'm Nino Gonzalez, and welcome to another episode of Making Sense. Well, I have the pleasure of bringing back a student that I have interviewed a couple of times, and it's been about 6 months. And Claudia Garcia, thank you very much for coming by and willing to do another show. And let's get a little update about you and what you've been up to, and are you almost going to be done with your education here at the college?
Well, almost. I'm gonna graduate in December. I'm sorry, in spring. I need to take 2 more classes.
Okay.
So I have been exciting.
Right. So,
That's
so,
right.
so you'll be graduating in spring of 2017, and are you already starting to think about what is it that you might want to do as after you graduate? Maybe looking for some job prospects.
Well, actually, yes. It's. I was thinking the last semester. Since the last semester, I want to apply all the things that I have been learning all this time doing in a community college. So I want to apply, especially, what can I say, the statements, the balance sheets. I think those things are very like me. So it's what I'm looking for.
So you want to try and get into maybe with a company, maybe with a CPA firm or a bookkeeping company that where they might do the financial statements for
Yes,
clients.
is what I'm most interested.
How about taxes? That doesn't interest you?
Yeah, yes, but I think I can invest some time in doing that. I already took my taxes class, so it could be good option too. Instead, I could look around for both of them.
Okay, great. Well, one of the reasons that you're here is because we went out and we got questions from students, from our fellow students here at the college, and they had some questions about financial literacy, and I asked you if you could help me along. And so these are questions from students here at the college. And so why don't we start and see what advice we can provide to our students and maybe also the viewing public that might have the same questions.
Well, I have one that is: does carrying balance on your credit card help you to help your credit?
So does carrying a balance on your credit card help your credit? Well, it all depends. Um, First of all, if you have credit but you don't use it, it can hurt you. So what you want to do is you want to use it and pay it off. The thing is, you don't want to carry a balance, or you don't want to carry too high of a balance. So this is a double-edged sword. We want to use the credit that we have, but we want to pay it off. That'll help improve our score. But if you start using it too much and the balance then exceeds a certain amount, then it could hurt you. And then you might get into problems of not being able to pay it back. So it all depends. It all depends. But in order for us to have credit or to get credit, we need to use it, and especially to build up our credit score and build up our credit history.
Or what happens if, for example, I have a credit card and I paid off, but I never use it?
You never use it?
I never use it.
Well, that's going to show up as available credit that you have at your disposal. But then if you're not using it, it's not showing other lenders your responsibility of maybe you charging on it, paying it off, charging on it and paying it off, and not trying to carry a balance. And that's usually what I suggest is use it every now and then. You don't have to use it every month, but whatever you charge, then just pay it off.
Oh, okay.
Okay?
I have another question. In a 6.25 APR, what does the APR stand for?
What does the APR stand for? And we hear that a lot especially in commercials, like for
Cars.
vehicles,
Yes,
for
for
vehicles, or
vehicles.
even when we have credit unions or banks, and they say APR or APY. Sometimes it's referred to as APY. One of the things that I'd like to stress is that whenever you see a percentage, an interest rate, whether we're investing money or we're borrowing money, it's always stated on an annual basis. So that's your interest rate for an annual basis. So when it's APR, that means annual percentage rate. Or if it's APY, it's annual percentage yield. So both of those are used fairly commonly. So whenever you see that there's a car commercial and it says, 2.5%, that means it's 2.5% per year. That's your annual percentage rate. And in a lot of credit cards, since we were discussing credit cards, those could go as low as maybe 12% to as high as 30%, you
20%,
know,
yes.
and that's your annual percentage rate. So when you get your bill, basically what they're doing is they're prorating that 12% or that 30% or that 2.5% over 12 months. And that's how they calculate the interest.
Okay. I have another one. Should you pay down your largest bill debts first?
Okay, so we have some debts, and what should we do? You know, which one should we pay off? It all depends. So we might want to pay off the ones with a higher interest rate to get them out of the way. But sometimes, as a motivational factor, there might be some little ones we can get rid of, because once you start paying your debts, then you want to continue. So it builds sort of a snowball effect.
Oh yeah, I haven't
So
heard.
so sometimes what that creates, it creates motivation within you to start paying down your debts. So you might want to start little and then go to the next highest one, go to the next highest one, go to the next highest one, and the payments that you're saving on those, then apply
Yeah,
them to
but
the
the
other
other one.
debts, and you're going to have a snowball effect. But if you have a debt that has a higher interest rate, then what I would suggest is pay your minimums on all the other ones and try and put more into that higher one, into that higher interest rate. So it all depends on your situation, on your personal financial situation, and it all depends how large your debts are, what interest rates you're having, and whether you want to get that motivation of paying off some of the little ones off and get them out of the way.
Okay. Because I always thought that it was better to pay the small one, but now you mentioned that it's important to see if the biggest how much you have to pay in interest.
That's correct.
Oh,
That's
okay.
exactly
Let's
right,
have a
because
good-
if you're paying on a smaller one, let's say you're paying about 10%, but you have a large one that you're paying maybe about 24%, then it would make more sense to get rid of that 24% right away.
Okay,
Okay.
that's good. I have another one. A health insurance program that is funded by some of my payroll taxes and run by the federal government is known as FICA, FIT, or Medicare.
Okay, so you mentioned three taxes there that are taken out of our paycheck. We have FICA, which is the Federal Insurance Contributions Act, and that is made up of Social Security and Medicare. And then you've got FIT, which is your federal income tax, and that's a tax that you pay, and basically when you get your W-2, that's what you use to prepare your tax return and see whether you're going to get a refund or not. And then there's Medicare. And Medicare is part of our FICA tax, because FICA includes two taxes, Social Security and Medicare. And those are straight rates. Social Security is 6.2% of your gross pay, and Medicare is 1.45% of your gross pay. Now, everybody pays into Medicare. Not everybody pays into Social Security, depending on where you work. For example, here at the college, I don't pay into the Social Security system, but I do pay into Medicare because we have our own funded retirement plans. And all of the teachers here in Texas, they do not pay to the Social Security fund because they have TRS, the teacher retirement system. So the one, to answer your question, is going to be Medicare. And a lot of us don't know what taxes are even being taken out of our paycheck. And we should take a look at those paycheck stubs every once in a while, because nowadays, I just get an email and it says, go look at your paycheck stub, or go look at your bank statement or your credit card statement. And what happens is that out of sight, out of mind, and we don't even review it, and we don't even know what is being taken out of our paycheck.
That's what happened to me. If I don't go to the computer to check my schedule, so I don't see my pay stub, so I never know.
I know, and we just get used to it, and
Yes.
and we're hoping that it's right. And since it's the same amount every time, I guess it's right. But we should take a look at it every once in a while and see
Yes.
what is taken out of our paycheck. And sometimes we might be surprised.
Yeah, that's true. I have another good question. Suppose I have $100 in a saving account, earning 2% interest a year. After 5 years, how much I will have?
Okay.
More than 102, exactly 102, or less than 102?
Okay. Well, what do you think?
Well, what I think is little more than 100.
A little more than 102?
Mhm.
Okay. So remember that 2% is per year. Okay. And that's high for a savings account right now because most savings accounts are paying 1% or less. So that means if I were to save $1 in a savings account and leave it there, it will only earn a penny. Okay, so at the end of 1 year, I would have $1 and a penny. So if we're investing
For 4 or 5
$100,
years.
so then in 1 year you would have how much? You would have 102.
102. Oh,
But
no.
then the next year it's going to earn interest on that 102. So then it's going to grow, and then the following year it's going to earn interest on the 102 plus the interest from the last year plus the interest from this year. That's what we call the power of compounding, and that's how we make our money grow. Of course, at 2%, it's going to be fairly difficult to make it grow, and we want bigger rates of return. And you know, that's another show where we get into investing into different mutual funds or index funds where we can get those larger rate of returns. But these are, I'm surprised that these students have such good questions. Even in class today, we were talking about accounts receivable with a company, and we were talking about bad debts and writing off an account. And when a company writes off an account, they basically deem that account as worthless and uncollectible, and we don't want to pursue it anymore. And the students, we started talking about, well, what happens to the individual that it gets written off? And, we started a discussion on it's going to affect your credit, it's going to affect your credit score, it's going to show up as a write-off on your credit report, which is a really bad ding on your credit report. And that write-off could appear on your credit report for 7 or more years, depending on the situation and how it's handled. So these questions even come up as I teach my classes, which is great that students have that, and some students didn't even know about how to get their credit report. Well, we'll come back and answer some more of our EPCC students' questions on the second half of Making Sense. Welcome to the second half of Making Sense, and we've been discussing, Claudia and I, about questions, financial literacy questions that we gathered from a few El Paso Community College students. But it's not just students that have these questions. I'm sure our community and our viewing public has probably some of the same questions. So let's continue on and see what students want to know.
Well, I have another very good question. A 15 years mortgage typically requires higher monthly payments than a 30 years mortgage, but the total interest over the life of the loan will be less.
Okay, so good question. Most of us, we want to finance a house within 30 years, and I think that's a little bit too long. I think if you can't afford that monthly payment within 15 years, then you must downsize your home. Because it's the same thing when we go buy a car. We can put you in a car that meets your payment, but we're just going to have to spread the length longer.
Yeah.
Okay, and is it worth it? So usually I suggest if you can finance a home within 15 years, yes, your payment is going to be higher, but the interest that you pay is going to be lower because you're only going to be paying that interest over 15 years instead of over 30 years. And the same thing goes when you're purchasing a car. if you can't afford that monthly payment and pay it off within an appropriate amount of time, then you need to downsize. You need to think about a different type of car. And usually what I suggest is with new cars, we're used to what, 5 years?
5 years, yeah.
I think, we in America, I think we live under these credit myths. And I would suggest 3 years. And a used car, I would suggest 2 years if you can pay it off. The best thing is to pay it off in what? Cash. That's the best choice. But if you can't afford those payments and pay a car off within 2 years or 3 years, or your home off within 15 years, then you must reconsider your purchase. And that's being an informed consumer. And what is it that you can afford and live within your means?
Yeah, but there's a problem that sometimes we don't inform and we don't get educated.
Yeah, and we live under this myth that we can pay it off within 5 years. I've even seen some individuals pay their car off within 7 years because they're buying these $35,000, $40,000 cars or trucks.
Yeah, because they said it's new, have to be of the year, and instead of saying, well, it's new for me, doesn't matter if it happened somebody else just said.
It all depends on your lifestyle and what's appropriate for you. But sometimes we got to make more money sense of what is it that we're spending.
Yeah, that's the truth. I have another question. If you want to improve your credit score, which step is the best to take? Close all credit card accounts you no longer use, pay down your debts at the least 25% of less of your each credit card limit, consolidate your debt on balance transfer credit card.
Wow, so we want to improve our credit score. You don't want to close, for example, you mentioned that you had a credit card that you don't use, and you probably had it for a while, right?
Yes.
You don't want to close that one. You want to leave it open and make sure it never becomes inactive, so you got to use it every once in a while. Why? Because part of your credit score is the length of time you've had those accounts. So if you start closing those accounts and you're keeping the newer ones, it's gonna affect your credit score. It's gonna bring it down, because we want to show history.
Okay.
And another thing, if you close them down, that's gonna get rid of your available debt. Okay. So and if you owe some, your what you owe, your debt percentage could actually go up. So for example, if I have a total available credit of 30,000, and I'm in debt by 10,000. Okay, so now if I close an account that might have a $10,000 credit limit, now I have a 20,000 available credit on a $10,000 debt. My debt ratio just went to 50%. Okay, so we don't want to do that.
No.
The best thing is to pay down your balances. And like I said, what I recommend is you use it, pay it off. If you can't, let's try and keep it 25% or below of your credit limit. So if your credit limit is 10,000, then you should really only have be in debt 3,500. Okay, and not try to max it out, because that does lower your score. Now, if you consolidate your debt into one credit card, well, again, that's going to affect your score because you're opening a new account. And when you open up a new account, that's what we call a hard inquiry on your credit report, and that does lower your score. Now, over time, and if you stop charging on those other ones, don't close them. Just stop charging on those other ones and start paying this off, then your credit score could improve.
So there are a lot of businesses that try to do that, to say, we can consolidate.
Well, that's interesting. As a matter of fact, I got an email from a viewer asking that same question, that but they wanted for this individual to put money into an account and they would consolidate. Those are usually scams, okay? Those are usually scams because they're gonna have fees up front, and not only that, they're gonna have maybe higher interest rates, and so you gotta be very careful about those types of consolidation companies. Now, there's other ones that are legitimate. There's Lending Club, and there's so many other, and what these, like for example, Lending Club, these are community-based lending. So what happens is that they have investors like you and I. We can invest money, and then they use those to issue out loans. And that's become a big thing, is this community lending, and we're not going through a bank. And they can offer you better rates, and they're not a scam, and you can pay it off within time. But sometimes what happens when we consolidate is, okay, we moved it all over here, but now I have this available credit because I paid it off, and then we start using it again. That's usually what happens. But what I suggest is, don't close them, but don't use them. Don't use them, So those are one of the issues. Another thing is that if you're getting in problems of paying your credit card bills or any type of debt, is go through consumer credit counseling, which is offered by the local Y, and they do that, and that is a legitimate beneficial source that can help you get out of debt, and they can negotiate payments, and they even waive interest with your creditors. Okay, and sometimes when you do this debt consolidation, sometimes, in other words, what they're doing is a little bit of bankruptcy there.
Okay, and that's a big
and
word.
that's bad, yes.
I have another question. How many times per year can you access your free credit report at www.annualcreditreport.com?
Okay, so I did several shows on credit reports, and this always comes up. There's a site called annualcreditreport.com, and you can get it once a year. And we also got to be aware that there's 3 credit bureaus. There's Equifax, there's Experian, and then there's TransUnion. And each of them could have different information on your credit file, because most of your big banks and credit card companies, they report to all 3. But there might be a business where you have credit, they might just report to one. So they might just report to Experian and not report to the other 2. So you're going to see differences there, and you need to check each one of them. So you can also get it free if you've been turned down for a loan or a credit card, or if you've been turned down for employment, because now a lot of employers are checking your credit report. And one of the things that I suggest is, if you've never taken a look at your credit reports, and as a matter of fact, we were talking about this in class with my Principles of Accounting 1 class, is I suggest download them all at once. And then once you start viewing them and you agree with the information on there, then you go into downloading one every 4 months. So after the year passes, then go back to the site and download the one from Experian, and then wait 4 months, the one from Equifax, then wait another 4 months, the one from TransUnion, and that way you're monitoring your credit once you reviewed all 3 in that first year, because many people don't even review their credit reports.
That's my situation. I never review.
You've never reviewed
no.
and you've come on this show and you haven't reviewed.
I know because I took Principles 1 with you, and you always give us this amazing advices how to use our money wisely. But it's something that maybe because I don't open too many accounts everywhere. Right. So, but now that I'm telling, maybe if I don't monitor it, what happens if somebody else is using?
That's exactly right. We will never know. And sometimes we pay these credit monitoring companies a monthly fee to monitor our credit when we can do it ourselves. Or also about, there's these I've seen, and I've talked about this before, you sometimes see signs at the corner of a gas station, "We'll fix your credit." Are you really going to call somebody that posts a sign, a handwritten sign on, those are usually going to be scams, and they take your personal information when you can do it yourself. Yeah. And I've talked about how to do that in previous shows, and just as a reminder, if you want to go back and view these previous shows, all these shows are on YouTube, and you can just search EPCC TV and put my name, Nino Gonzalez, and all the past shows will come up. So that way, in case you miss something or you want to review something, that's available to the public as well.
I have another question. How big should my emergency fund be?
How big do you think your emergency fund would be if you lost your job or something happened?
What I know, 6 months.
6 months. That's exactly right. So that's the ideal. Okay, that's the ideal. Now, do you have 6 months of pay put away?
Oh, I can feel proud to say yes.
Yes. Oh, wow. Well, that's great. But many of us, what? Don't. We don't even have $1,000 saved up. So, you know, that's one of the issues that we have is the savings, and we would rather, you know, have a monthly payment of, you know, $500 to $600 on a vehicle, and not save.
Yeah, and because we never know. Well, my husband is now experiencing sometimes that this moment of the year that they cutting hours.
Right.
So he's calmed down because he already has money saved.
And a lot of individuals and families are one disaster away from a financial tragedy. You know, an accident can happen, an illness can come on suddenly, you can lose your job, and we're not prepared. So at least the very first thing is I suggest is try and save up at least that $1,000 first. Well, thank you, Claudia. I think we only answered about half of the questions that our El Paso Community College students had, so I might have to bring you back to another show to finish it up. And thank you for watching another episode of Making Sense, and we'll see you next time. Thank you, Claudia. Goodbye.